You're listening to the Bear in Mind podcast, episode number 104.
A podcast uncovering identity, color, and love, where driving yourself crazy is totally sane and curable. Now your host, T. Bias.
I've got something so fun today. Well, sort of. I mean, it's fun in the sense that I'm going back to an older episode. It's number 16, mispronunciation of your name. And I listened to it and I sounded horrible. But go back to it. It's about mispronouncing your name. My name has been mispronounced all throughout my life. It continues today. It gets misspelled, misnamed, all of it. And to me, it doesn't matter. However, I'm bringing it up again today because I recently read an article, and I'll put a link in the show notes to this article. It's by wonky.com. And the article is talking about what to do so you don't misname people, misspell it, and then mispronounce it. So misnaming it in those two kind of contexts. And there's excellent advice in there about what to do to prevent it, and then what to do if you mispronounce or misspell somebody's name, and then how you can be an ally to other people whose names frequently get misnamed. And it's a really great article, and the advice is great, and I liked it. And I'm doing a podcast on the part where I disagreed with some of the things that were said. So advice, great. I'm going to follow it. One of the things is turn autocorrect off, because every time I type in Priya, which is a very common Indian name, it will come up with something else. So yes, turn autocorrect off. And so where I don't disagree with the article is that it does a disservice to the people that often get their names misnamed. And anyone's name, right, can be misnamed. That can be for any culture. And often it's usually people in the groups, people of color, indigenous people, black people, marginalized people. Those are the names that are frequently misnamed. And I think the article does a disservice to them. I think it doesn't represent the strength of the people. And they refer to it as, this category of misnaming a name continues to perpetuate a feeling of they're other. They're not in the mainstream of the white kind of Anglo-Saxon names. So here's where I think it does a disservice. As a person of color, as a person that gets their name misnamed a lot. So my name is misspelled a lot. And then my first name seems quite easy to say, but there are actually 3 different pronunciations of it. There's an Indian pronunciation, and then there's 2 ways to pronounce it in the English language. And so it happens all the time. And I'll tell you, if I continue to get upset, it would be almost every day, because my Dutch teacher, and when I was taking Dutch, he kept writing, and I think this is an autocorrect issue, kept writing Tamara. And I'm like, I'm not Tamara. But face to face, he called me T. So it was all good. So in the article, back to the article, it says, our names are our identity and who we are. And I was like, what? Yeah, no. My name is not my identity and who I am. First of all, my name was changed when my parents immigrated to the U.S. So when I was born, I got that name. My parents chose my first name. I don't have a middle name. And then my surname was not actually my father's surname. So that is not going to be part of my identity. I'm not going to attach my identity to a name. I'm not going to attach it to something in the history that they did back then for reasons that today we wouldn't do. The other thing is that I want you to really think about people's names. And I have a couple examples in history. So during Napoleon time, he wanted to make things uniform. So he went around and wanted to create people having the same names. So the Dutch chose their names. So a lot of Dutch people have really funny last names, and they picked them. And so it's kind of interesting sometimes when somebody's name is pants or something like that. So it was because of Napoleon, and then the names changed in Europe. And then if you think about history and you think about enslaved people, when they enter a country and then they obtain a name, they don't keep their ancestral name. So then the question becomes, what happened to their identity? When it was forced, when names were changed, and you got this name, Napoleon did it, Europeans did it when they enslaved people, and in other countries, people didn't have their name. And we can continue to say that that shouldn't have happened, but I'm not going to argue with reality, because what I want to do is say that did happen, and what can we learn about it today? And the thing that I take away from this is that my identity is not going to be attached to something that a government that was not in my control decided to do with my name. So identity it's only how you think about yourself. And I am not going to attach how I think about myself to every single person every day that misspells my name and mispronounces my name. I'm not going to give them that power. Why would I give people that power to say, oh, every time somebody makes a mistake, it's going to perpetuate this idea that I'm othered? And again, that does not mean you don't show up, you don't take that advice from the article. It doesn't mean you negate the advice of turning your autocorrect off, of asking how to pronounce it, not explaining, just saying I'm sorry, and then move on and learn from it. I'm not negating any of that advice. That is something that I'm going to do, and I think that's something that all advice as people, I think, could learn from and benefit from approaching learning somebody's name that isn't so familiar to you. That is great. What I think the disservice is people where we're frequently, our names are misnamed, is that our identity is our name. Our identity is so much more than that. And not to allow a feeling of otherness or not belonging because of somebody else's mistake. And I want you to really think about how much power we give to other people when they make a mistake about our name. I don't want to do that. I get to decide if I belong here. I get to decide if I take up space here. And I have that privilege today because of the history that came before me, because of the people that are not mentioned in history books, by the way, that fought and had strength so that now today I can take up spaces where before I wasn't allowed in those spaces. So I don't want to go into situations like this and think, oh, because somebody called me Tamara, oh, no, I feel like I don't belong. No, I'm going to tell them that's not my name. And that's okay. And even if they make the mistake the next day, which I love my Dutch teacher, by the way, he's the best teacher I've ever had. It's okay. I can still go and correct it and not make it mean anything, not make it mean all sorts of things like that my identity doesn't matter, who I am doesn't matter, that I don't matter in this situation. And that's up to me to decide. I'm not going to let that other person decide that for me. Not because I think they're bad or anything for mispronouncing my name, but nobody else gets to decide that. You get to decide you belong. You get to decide you matter, regardless of the mistakes other people make. So when we communicate to people in a group where they're not marginalized, that this is going to reinforce a feeling of otherness, what we subtly communicate to them is that they're causing how we feel, which then that doesn't help the situation at all. But it also does a disservice to me, as if I don't have the strength to take it, as if I can't handle it. Because the thing about it is I know people can handle it. I know that people who get misnamed a lot, they can handle it. They can show up. They can learn how to show up. And that is the kind of adversity that you build, that builds kind of that resilience. I'm messing up all my words today. Resilience, the strength, the self-confidence. And when we say that other people are going to cause how we feel, it doesn't show marginalize people as people who have fought adversity, who have come and made progress, who have made the progress that we see in the world today, even though their stories haven't been shared and gone mainstream. And that is where I disagree with the article. And I highly recommend that you read the article because of the advice, because of how to show up as an ally. Because there were some things out of that article where I thought, well, oh yeah, I know that that person's name is spelled this way, and I could have said it to somebody else, and I didn't. And it's something I'm going to share with my friends and my family to say, oh, by the way, you can say this at work. You can say, oh, you misspelled that person, and show up for somebody who maybe is feeling like they're a junior person in the company and they're not able to voice their opinions. So read the article for that advice. Know that if you're a person that gets your name misnamed, that it's not about your identity. It doesn't take away your identity. And who you are, your identity is so much bigger than the name you fill out on a form. That's all I have for you this week. I'll check back with you next.
Thanks for listening. Listen for a new episode next Tuesday by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Bye for now.